I'm a man you can trust. It's how my customers view me. Why else would they hand me their house keys before they leave for vacation? Why else would they depend on me to clear their attics, lug their excess furniture to their basements? "Mind your step, young fellow, that's Hepplewhite," Mrs. Rodney says, and then goes into her kitchen to brew a pot of tea. I could get up to anything in that basement, but she takes it for granted that I'm a good person. Come to think of it, I'm the one who doesn't take it for granted. On the very last day of a bad old year, I was leaning against a pillar in the Baltimore Railroad station, waiting to catch the 10:10 a.m. to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is where my little girl lives. Her mother married a lawyer there after we split up. Ordinarily, I'd have driven, but my car was in the shop, and so I had to fork over the money for a train ticket. There were a lot more people waiting than I'd expected at Penn Station. Elderly couples with matching luggage, swarms of college kids with duffel bags, and this gray-haired guy was walking around speaking to strangers one by one. Well-off guy, you could tell. Nice turtleneck, soft beige car coat. He went up to a woman sitting alone and asked her a question. Then he came over to a girl in a miniskirt standing near me. I'd been thinking I wouldn't mind talking to her myself. The man said, "Would you, by any chance, be traveling to Philadelphia?" "No, New York," she said in this shallow, breathless voice that came as a disappointment. "Well, thanks anyway," he said, and moved toward the next bench. Now he had my full attention. "Ma'am," I heard him ask an old lady, "are you traveling to Philadelphia?" When she told him, "Wilmington," he just plunged on, almost shouting, "But my daughter's counting on me." Well, I was going to Philadelphia. He could have asked me. I understood why he didn't, of course. No doubt I struck him as iffy, with my 3-day growth of black stubble and my ripped leather jacket. Instead, he just flicked his eyes at me, then swerved off toward the bench at the end of the room. By now, he was looking seriously under-medicated. "Please," he said to a woman reading a book, "tell me you're going to Philadelphia." She was 30-ish, maybe 35, older than I was anyhow. A schoolmarm with a yellow netted bun, a coat with a pattern like feathers all over it. "Philadelphia?" she said. "Why, yes, I am." "Then could I ask you a favor?" They were announcing my train now. People started moving toward Gate E. If the woman said anything, I missed it. Next I heard the man was talking. "My daughter's flying out this afternoon for a junior semester abroad, leaving from Philadelphia. The airline offers a bargain rate if you leave from Philadelphia, so I put her on a train this morning, stopped for groceries afterward, and came home to find my wife in a state. It seems our daughter'd forgotten her passport. She telephoned from the station in Philly, don't know what to do next, so I told her she should stay right there in the station, and I would get somebody here to carry up her passport." A likely story. Why didn't he go himself if this was such an emergency? "Why don't you go yourself?" the woman asked him. "I can't leave my wife alone that long. She's in a wheelchair. Parkinson's." This seemed like a pretty flimsy excuse, if you want my honest opinion. Also, it exceeded what I would consider the normal quota for misfortunes. Not only a lame-brained daughter, but a wife with a major disease? The man was holding a packet. He must have pulled it from his car coat, one of those padded mailers the size of a paperback book. Aha, padded, so you couldn't feel the contents. And from where I stood, it looked to be stapled shut besides. "Watch yourself, lady," I said silently. As if she'd heard me, she told the man, "I hope this isn't some kind of contraband." "No, no," he gave a huff of a laugh. "No, I can assure you it's not." Meanwhile, the speaker came to life again. The train was now boarding. "I'll do it," the woman decided. "Oh, wonderful. That's wonderful. Thanks," the man told her and handed her the packet. "I'll call the payphone where my daughter's waiting and let her know who to watch for. She'll be standing at information when you get there. Esther Brim, her name is, a redhead." He followed the woman down the stairs. I was close behind. "And you are?" the man was asking. The woman said, "I'm Sophia," and then something I couldn't hear. "In case we miss connections, though," she said, raising her voice, "he should put his name and phone number on the mailer." But he seemed to have his mind elsewhere. He said, "Are you coming back to Baltimore, or is Philly your end destination?" She said, "Oh, I'm a long-time Baltimorean. This is just an overnight visit to my mother. I do it every weekend. Take the 10:10 Patriot Saturday morning and come back sometime Sunday." "Well," he said, "I certainly do appreciate this." "It's no trouble at all," she said, and turned to board. I'd been hoping to sit next to her, mention I'd overheard what the man had asked of her, and suggest the two of us check the contents of his packet, but she settled down beside a lady in a fur hat. The packet was resting on top of her book. Where the mailer was folded over, staples ran straight across in a nearly unbroken line. But staples were no problem. She could pry them up and replace them when she was finished. "Do it," I told her in my head. Back in the days when I was a juvenile delinquent, I used to break into houses and read people's private mail. Also photo albums. The other kids, they'd be hunting car keys and cigarettes and booze, while I sat poring over somebody's wedding pictures. And even when I took stuff, it was always personal stuff. I'm not proud of this. I'd sooner confess to jewel theft than to pocketing 6 letters tied up with satin ribbon, which is what I did when we jimmied the lock at the Empress place one night. So when this Sophia woman let the packet stay untouched, I felt something like, almost envy. At 30th Street Station at the Information Island, only one person stood waiting. A girl in a denim jacket and jeans with a billow of electric red hair. When we reached the island, I veered right toward a display of schedules on the counter. I heard Sophia ask, "Esther Brim, your father asked me to bring you something." I turned my face casually in their direction. Esther said, "Right, my passport. Oh, thanks a million, Miss Maynard." And Sophia said, "My pleasure." Then she turned away toward the 29th Street exit. Now I was focused on Esther. "Open it," I told her. Instead, she moved off toward the phones. The phones were the unprivate kind, standing cheek to jowl. When Esther lifted a receiver, I was right there beside her, lifting a receiver of my own. I heard every word. "Dad," she was saying. "Yes, it's here." It could have been anything. Diamonds, crack cocaine. But somehow I didn't think so. She'd have had to be a criminal genius to fake the easy offhandedness of a person who knows for a fact that she's her parents' pride and joy. When she hung up, I didn't even watch her go. The drill for visiting my daughter was, I'd arrive about 10 a.m. and take her on an outing. But due to one thing and another, my car acting up, my alarm not going off, I was late as hell that day. I more or less ran all the way to the apartment. By the time I pressed the buzzer, I was looking even scruffier than my usual self. I could tell as much from Natalie's expression the minute she opened the door. Natalie, of course, was Miss Good Grooming. She had been a beauty for as long as I'd known her. Except now that I recalled, there'd always been something too placid about her. Her vague, dreamy slowness used to seem sexy. Now it just made me impatient. I said, "Is Opal ready to go?" And Natalie took a full minute, I swear, to consider every aspect of the situation. Then, "Opal is in her room," she said finally, "crying her eyes out." "Crying? She thought you stood her up." "Well, I know I'm a little bit late," I said. "Things just seem to conspire against me. Can I see her?" After she thought that over a while, she turned and floated off, which I took to mean yes. I made my own way to Opal's bedroom. "Opal?" I called. "You in there?" No answer. I turned the knob and poked my head in. She was in the white rocker by the window. She wasn't crying. She was glaring at me reproachfully from underneath her eyebrows. I knew I shouldn't think this, but my daughter had never struck me as very appealing. She had all her life been a few pounds overweight, with a dish-shaped face and colorless hair. I did want the best for her, though. I squatted down in front of her. "Opal, Dopal," I said, "Sweetheart, I'm sorry I'm late. First I had car trouble. See, you always have car trouble. Then my alarm clock didn't go off. It always doesn't go off. Then once I got to Penn Station, you'll never guess. It was like a secret agent movie. Guys walking up to people, pulling something out of his coat. Ma'am," I made my voice sound menacing and mysterious, "would you please take this package to Philadelphia for me?" Opal didn't speak, but I could tell she was listening. "Take it to my daughter in Philly. All it is her passport." And I thought to myself, I just bet it's her passport. So when this woman said she'd do it, I followed her. You followed her? I wanted to see what would happen. I followed her to her rendezvous with the quote-unquote daughter. And then I hung around the phones while the daughter placed a call to... You hung around the phones? You were only dawdling in the station all this time? It was uncanny how much she sounded like her mother. You promised you'd come at 10, and instead you were just goofing around with a bunch of secret agents? Could I speak with you a minute? Natalie asked me. She was standing in the doorway. I sighed and followed her into the kitchen. I've been thinking, Natalie said. Maybe it would be better if you didn't come any more. Her face was as untroubled as a statue's. I used to believe it was important for Opal to keep in touch with you, but now I wonder if it might be doing her more harm than good. All those Saturdays you come late, and even when you do show up, I imagine it started to dawn on her how you live. I live just fine. A rented room, she mused. An unskilled job. Still not finished college at the age of 30. 29, I corrected her. The one charge I could argue with. 30 in 3 weeks, she said. The next thing I knew, Natalie was gliding out of the kitchen, and I had no choice but to follow her. The front door made almost no sound when she closed it.